everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over Tableau and how you can use it for a lot of your case analysis to really support your recommendations with data. So to start, we're just going to go over the agenda. We're going to start off with an introduction to data analysis, and then we'll show you how to actually access Tableau on your computers, and then we'll briefly go over how to use the software, and we'll finish up with a guided exercise by Joe. First off, we want to talk about what data analysis is. So essentially, if you look at these pictures, the one in the bottom left, we have a huge Excel sheet with tons of data in it, and on the right, you can see it's been compiled into a dashboard that shows a much better picture of what the data means, and it's much more understandable. So essentially, this is what data analysis is meant to do. It's meant to take large amounts of data, clean it, and transform it and make it into an easily understandable picture of the data. On this slide, we have a couple of points about data analysis. First off, it's really interesting to know that over 90% of our data today was created within the last 2 years. So that is definitely largely due to all the technology advancements we've had in recent years. More technology and more connected devices just naturally creates and collects more data. So I think this speaks to how important data analysis is also going to be in the future when there's an increased amount of data to work with. So also going along with that, there's more things that make up data than people might think of. For example, photos, texts, and even social media posts count as data. Even though they're in the unstructured form, they can still be analyzed, maybe not as easy as numerical data, but still it should not be overlooked. Though it might not be the type of data that you guys are going to be dealing with for Tableau, it's still important to recognize this point. And lastly, I was kind of touching on this before, the Internet of Things is largely responsible for how much data we have today. So the Internet of Things includes all of our connected devices, and it covers how they're able to interact with each other. So it allows for much more fluid data sharing and data collection. And so that's definitely contributed to the boom in data that we're now experiencing. So altogether, I think these three main points, and probably many more, have led to what we know now as big data. Big data includes both structured and unstructured data, and overall, it's just a massive amount of information that we can work with. And through data analysis, we're trying to understand it in many ways that we might not have been able to do in the past. So there's 4 main types of data analysis that you can be using for your case or in general with any project. The first one is called descriptive analytics. This is basically looking at past data and KPIs and trying to find trends over time. It's the most basic form of data analysis, but it can still provide very helpful insights as to how data has been trending in the past. The second type is diagnostic analytics, and it involves adding another data set or variable that allows you to determine why what you saw in your descriptive analytics was happening. So this helps you to kind of find a root cause for the trend and any correlations with a multitude of other factors. So third, you have predictive analytics, and this is showing how variables can impact performance in the future. This could be for your revenue or basically any KPI or trend that you're analyzing. So you're just adding in more variables and projecting them forward to see how you think they will look in the future. And then lastly, there's prescriptive analytics. This is the kind of analytics that's at the heart of what consultants do. It's showing how you've taken the knowledge from your other 3 types of analytics and drawn them out, moved them forward, and then made an informed, data-driven business decision. So in your case, getting to prescriptive analytics standpoint might be a lot of work to do, kind of daunting and kind of difficult for a short period of time. So don't get too caught up in getting to this point. It's just more important that you are making sure you really understand whatever descriptive analytics you are doing and what the purpose and what value it brings to your overall recommendations is. So in this slide, we have some popular analytics tools as well as some free data sources. This slide kind of speaks for itself, but I'll just briefly go over them. Tableau is the one that we're going to be teaching you guys how to use today, and it's really helpful for presenting the data very clearly. Power BI is a Microsoft software that's widely used by many companies. Alteryx, I have a little bit of experience with. It's really good at cleaning the data and getting it ready to be imported to a different analytics tool like Tableau that can then create visuals for it. And then lastly, there's Excel. We all have experience with it, but you might not have realized that it also is an analytics tool. And then on the other side, we have some free data sources. A lot of the times I used to think that data was something you would have to pay for, or that there just wouldn't really be something that matched what the purpose you were trying to achieve was. But in actuality, it's quite contrary to this. There's a lot of data sets out there that can support your research and your recommendations. You just have to go out there and find them. So these are some really great sources, and there's many other ones you can find out there that can be used alongside it. So now we're going to show you how to get Tableau ready on your computer. You're going to be downloading the software with a Binghamton student account. That way you get a free year of Tableau as well as the e-learnings that go along with it. So that way you'll get more comfortable with the technology. So first off, you're just going to make sure that you're registering with your Binghamton email and stay on top of your inbox, because they send you instructions that help you to set up your account and set up your Tableau desktop, as well as signing up for the e-learning program. So this is a screenshot of what you're going to be seeing when you're signing up. It's going to send you a product key, which I've bolded right here. And you're going to use that to activate your Tableau desktop and Tableau prep. And then secondly, you're going to be signing up for e-learning. They give you this access key here that you will be inputting to get yourselves signed up to start using that. It's a separate sign-up process, and you'll create your account and you'll have access to a bunch of their resources for learning how to use Tableau. And this can be really helpful not only for your case, any other projects, or just getting yourself more familiar with data analysis. So yeah, and now Joe is going to be taking you guys through our guided exercise, as well as getting you a little bit more familiar with the program.
So once you actually have Tableau data downloaded onto your laptop and you're ready to use it, this is what it's going to look like when you first open up the application. So in the middle, you're going to have all your previous data sets that you've been working on. When you first open it, you're not going to have any data sets there, and that's okay. Then on the left side, there's the connect area. What the connect area does is that's how you connect your data sets to Tableau. There's a few different sources that you could use to connect your data sets to, like Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, different data sets. What you're primarily going to be using is Microsoft Excel, and that's what the two data sets that we provided you are formatted with. So you're going to connect it using Microsoft Excel. So after that, you're going to be brought to this screen, which this is where you could edit and start to manipulate your data sets. So depending on the data set that you have, there's going to either be just one sheet that you're going to be looking at, or multiple sheets. If there's just one sheet, all the data will be brought in automatically, and it'll be visible on the bottom. And then if there's multiple sheets, you're going to have to drag into the top area which sheet you're going to be working with. The two data sets that we provided to you guys believe they both only have one sheet, so everything should open up right away. But if there's two sheets, we'll show you later on how you can start to bring those sheets into Tableau. One thing that Tableau utilizes, which is pretty cool, is these live connections. So what that means is if you edit your data sets in Excel or whatever database they're being used in, once you save it on that platform, Tableau automatically updates the data on Tableau, so you don't have to worry about saving and starting over. So that's something to keep in mind, and make sure you have your live connection utilized. You shouldn't be manipulating the data sets in Excel that we gave you, but for any reason, if some of the other data sets that you find on your own research, you need to change them a little bit just to make them usable in Tableau, that's fine. You could utilize the live connection that way. And then once you're ready to move on to the actual worksheet, you're going to click that button in the bottom left, the sheet 1. So Tableau has a few different ways that you could start to use your data. The worksheet is going to be the main thing, and then from there you could use a dashboard to kind of compare your different worksheets, which we'll show you how to do later on. So then next, the two things that Tableau has is two things called measures and dimensions. So what dimensions are is the qualitative information about your data sets, and primarily you're going to be looking at your groups or your targets. So for example, what a group may be is, say, age, and then your target is going to be male or female. So using Tableau, you're going to want to bring in both the groups and the targets at the same time to kind of differentiate the two and show a comparison between the two. And then your measures are your quantitative information, or the actual data points that you're going to be looking at. So for example, with your McDonald's case, you're going to bring in the group of target of an age and a gender and male, and then you'll bring in McDonald's to kind of compare the male and female data points that way. So then applying your data and columns into rows. So the measures and dimensions are going to be brought into your columns and your rows, similar to how in Excel, the columns run vertically and rows run horizontally. So to bring your measures or dimensions in, you're going to want to either double click them or drag them into the columns and rows section. The tool that's above the columns and rows is pretty helpful. So that first button right over here, it's a transpose tool. So it automatically moves whatever's in your columns into your rows and what's in your rows into your columns. And then the two other buttons are ascending and descending. So when you have your graphs in place, they'll make it organized so they go from lowest values up to highest values. The Show Me tool is probably going to be one of your most useful tools. What that Show Me tool does is once you bring in the measures and dimensions that you're going to be looking at, you could click that Show Me tool and it automatically creates the visualization for yourself. So all you have to do is choose what measures and what dimensions, what data points you're going to be looking at. And then that Show Me tool is going to show you what graphs can be made based on what data points you want to look at. And then finally, we have our marks and filters. So what the filters are is, that's what it is. It's a filter. You can say for one of your McDonald's case, you're looking at the grouping of social media, and then the targets will be all the different social media platforms that are available. But you only want to compare, say, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You could filter out it based on target and then choose only those three platforms instead of looking at all the different social media. And then you also have your marks, which is where you're going to start to really manipulate your data and make it, visually more appealing. So you could colorize things. You could colorize, say, the targets that you're looking at. So Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter would all be a different target. You can put labels on your data sets. You can manipulate the size. So the size of the data that you're looking at is different depending on the size of the data sets. You have your details and your tooltips. So this probably doesn't really mean anything right now. So I think the best way for us for you to understand how to use Tableau is with the guided exercise. So that's what we're going to do next. I see we have a few questions in the chat. Bella, if you could answer those, that would be great.
I'm pretty sure I did already for are you talking about the R learning on our own or as part of a course?
I didn't get a chance to read them. I just saw there was some.
Oh, yeah, no, I got them.
Okay, perfect.
There was a question about having to wait 1 to 3 business days. Do you have any?
Hold on. I did not get that email, so let me check. I'll just message that student privately.
Cool.
So everyone can see this Tableau workbook now, right? I think so. Okay. All right. So this is what it looks like when you first open it up. You may have some, introductory information when you first join, but eventually this is going to be the main screen that you're looking at. So what we're going to be doing today is we can, show you guys exactly how to use the McDonald's data set. We want you to try to use that data set on your own, but we found a different introductory data set that we're going to use to show you how to start to work through some data sets. And then later on, we'll show you how to start to set up the McDonald's data set without using any information. So what you want to do first is connect it to an Excel file. And the data set that I found today is global sports finances. So what it is, it's looking at who the highest paid athletes are and then breaking down their pay by their endorsement money or their actual salaries. So one thing, the data is a little outdated. It's a couple years old. So if you see, some numbers that don't make sense, that's okay. It's just, I found an old data set that was easy to work with. So that's why I'm using that as the data set today. So this data set actually has 2 different sheets in Excel. So it's not automatically being brought into this area over here. So what we're going to be looking at today is the top athlete salary. So I'm going to drag that over to the top sheet over here. And now my data is brought into Tableau. So what we're going to do next, not going to be looking at this worksheet right now. So we're going to move on to the worksheet and the sheet 1. So this is what we brought the screenshots in before. You have your dimensions and measures over here, your columns and rows up top, and then your Show Me tool over here. Right now, if you use the Show Me tool, it's not showing you any graphs that you can make because you haven't chosen what dimensions and measures you want to look at. So I'd say the first thing we should start to look at is just overall who the top paid athletes are. And then from there, we can kind of make some comparisons about how they make their money. So first, what we want to do is bring in the athletes. You could either double click it or you could drag it over. We'll also look at their sport too. So one thing with the Tableau, it's important how you bring in these dimensions into the rows or columns based on what order you bring them in. So as you can see right now, the data looks one way, but if I bring the athletes behind the sport, now it groups everything by sport. So this is probably a little bit better of a way to look at this data. Now, as you can see right now, it's just saying there's no numbers involved. So next, what we want to do is bring in the pay, and we'll bring that into the columns. So right away, we get to see some actual, graphs being generated. One thing with the data set, it's pretty big, so it's kind of hard to compare the data from one thing to another. So let's see if the transpose tool makes it any better. A little bit, but not great. It's too wide. There's too many data points going on. So one thing we could do, let's say we want to filter out the top say 10% of athletes. So since we're looking at our 2014 pay, the next thing we want to do is filter it by 2014 pay. So we're going to be looking at all values. And then so you could either put in a range, at least, so everything above your value, or at most anything below your value, or a special filter that you wanted to put into place. So let's say, just for this example, we'll look at all athletes who make above $30 million. And that cleans it up a lot. Now we went from, maybe 50 or so data points to maybe there's 15 or 20 here. Again, it's still, you're able to see some visualizations right away, but it could be improved upon. But I said the first thing we want to do is let's make it by ascending. So now within the sport, it's being ascended upon by, how the athletes make money compared to each other. I think another thing that we could do, these, vertical lines separating the sports, it's not, totally separating the data. So I think one thing that's probably useful to do is let's color it by the sport. So now you get to see, a pretty clear example of basketball athletes are in blue, boxing athletes are in orange, your soccer athletes are in purple, and that's indicated by the legend over here. So now it makes a pretty clear, definition, and you could clearly see that the top athlete overall was a boxing athlete. Soccer had the most athletes making above 30 million, and some of the highest overall were in basketball, boxing, and soccer. So I guess now one thing that you would maybe want to do is name your data set. So if you just double click, very similar to Excel, you could say top paid athletes. And now your data set is named that. So what you want to do when you're looking at the McDonald's case and starting to bring this information into your presentation, you could just take a screenshot. It shows us that we're looking at the top paid athletes, and we get to see that their salary is on the left and the sport that they play is on the right. So now say you want to, keep this graph in mind, use it eventually, but you want to, compare it to something else. You're going to go back down here and create a second sheet. So this sheet is still in place. It's very similar to Excel where you could go back and forth between the worksheets. And now let's say we want to look at a different comparison. So originally we looked at the overall pay, the top athletes pay in 2014. Let's say we want to look at who the highest endorsing athletes were, what athletes made the most of their money from endorsements. So we'll look at it the same way. We'll bring in sport first, just double click, and then athlete. We have all of our athletes in based on what sport they play. And now let's look at the endorsements. So be careful when you double click, because sometimes the endorsements, or when you double click, things don't move to where you want them to go. So it was brought it to text. So I want to put it in the columns to get some visualizations in place. So we could use the show me tool. Let's see what the show me tool shows. Let's see how a pie chart would look. Well, it didn't create a pie chart. There's clearly some error there, so we're not going to use the pie chart. How about the packed bubbles? Packed bubbles make it a little bit more useful. It shows, you get to see that there's a lot of baseball athletes who are highest paid, football athletes as well. But again, there's too many data points going on right now. So maybe let's just go back to the bars again. So over in our first worksheet that we were looking at the top paid athletes, and specifically with the filter of above $30 million. And we want to do that again to fully get a comparison between the two data sets. So we'll bring in even though we're looking at the endorsements, we're going to filter it by 2014 pay. We're going to be looking at all values and making at least $30 million. So we have our same graph again, and we're going to look at it the same way. We're going to transpose it to make it horizontal, and we'll make it by ascending. And then we'll do the same process that we had before. We're going to filter it or mark it by the color of the sport, and you get to see a pretty clear example of where the highest paid endorsement athletes are. It's pretty clear that the golf athletes bring in a pretty high endorsement compared to the other sports. Notably, Floyd Mayweather and the other boxing athlete, Manny Pacquiao, were the highest overall earning athletes, but they have no money coming in with endorsements. LeBron James, who is the second highest overall earning athlete, the majority of his money is coming from endorsements. What we could do next is first we want to name it endorsements. And And then, so down here, this first box is for the worksheets, and then your second box is for your dashboards or your storyboards. Let's use the dashboard to kind of show a comparison between the two sheets. So over here, we have the sheets that we were working with, and simply what you want to do is drag them in to look at them compared to the other sheets. So we have our top paid athletes, and now we'll bring in our endorsements. That got messed up. And just double click it. And so right now it's a little narrow. We can make it bigger with the size over here. So we'll just want to increase the width a little bit. And now we have a comparison between the two, who the highest paid athletes were and who the top endorsing athletes were. But noticeably there's a little bit of an error going on right now where it looks like, you know, Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson are making more from endorsements than they are overall. But the problem that's going on with that is just the values on the side are too low. So we'll have to go back to our endorsements, double click, and we can make the range the same as the other one. Let's double check what the range was. 110 million. So again, just double click, make it a fixed range from 0 to 110. And now that makes more sense. And when we move over to our dashboard, the numbers line up. It's, you know, not showing that Tiger Woods makes more money compared to his top overall earnings. So now we get a pretty clear example of, you know, analyzing the data sets between the two. It's pretty clear that Floyd Mayweather makes the most regardless of not bringing in any endorsement money. Some athletes like Tiger Woods and LeBron James get a majority of their money from endorsements, while, you know, some of the football players, the majority of their money is coming in from their salaries. So I think this was, you know, a pretty easy, hopefully easy to follow example on how, you know, you could an introduction into Tableau. There's plenty of free videos to watch on YouTube that could probably explain it a lot better than I have. So I think what we'll do next is show you how to bring in the McDonald's workbook. We're not going to be using the McDonald's workbook, but just show you how to use it, because one of the main things with it is it has the groups and filters. You're going to go to File and New. And it should bring you back to the beginning. Can you see the screen or no? Is it a different screen?
No, we same one.
No, okay. Give me 1 second. All right, so here now we're brought to a fresh page of Tableau. The first thing we want to do is connect it to our data. So we're going to connect it to the Microsoft Excel file, and believe the data set was called Fast Food Industry Dataset. So now we have it connected. As you can see, there's only one sheet that's in this data set, and it's being brought in automatically. This is the data set that was sent out to everyone, where we're looking at the total number of, basically where the McDonald's and other competitors' customers get their media from, and different demographics that you're going to be looking at. So that we're not going to want to manipulate this data at all. We got this data set directly from a public database, and we sent it out to everyone to use. You don't have to use it. If you want to use your own data sets, that's fine, but we figured we would give students a starting point, at least, that they could start to look at their data. We're going to move over to the sheets first. And we're not going to use McDonald's, so let's just look at Wendy's, for example. We'll double click in Wendy's, and we'll look at our groups. Again, that you know, makes things a little tough, because there's some issues going on where it's showing that the ages and the you know, television. So really what the problem is, you want to bring in your targets as well. And now it shows where all the different demographics are coming from. So overall, there was about 60,000 people that were brought in with by age. And now you get to see where that age breakdown comes from. And then say you want to filter this by your group. With the dimensions, when you filter it, it's going to come up with a click down menu. So you'd say we want to look at it just by their, let's go income level. So now you're looking at just the income level and all the different income levels available based on the data that you filtered. Don't want to do too much more with this data set. We want you to, you know, try to learn this tool on your own, specifically use it with the McDonald's data set. But, you know, any questions related to the overall, you know, the first demonstration we went through, we could do that now.